Close to the California high desert, an unforgiving and desolate landscape, lays the affluent city of Palmdale. 65 miles due north of downtown Los Angeles, Palmdale is the ideal city for growing families and young couples looking to establish a comfortable and safe lifestyle. The desert heat often blows hot across the city, and temperatures in the summer regularly reach over 100 degrees. Such is the case on June 16, 2010.
It's a day that should have been for drinking sweet iced tea next to your air conditioner or eating a popsicle in the shade of a tree. Instead, it was a day of horrors for two women, Lorene Austin and her friend, Linnell Barsock.
28-year-old Lorene Austin charges into the Palmdale station of the LA County Sheriff's Office, covered in blood and alleging her friend has been murdered and that the killer was after her.
And she explained that she had been at the best friend's house doing the best friend's hair when that best friend, who she identified as Linnell Barsock, had gotten in an argument with her live-in boyfriend, who she identified as Lewis.
Lorene says she left the couple to sort out their issues and returned to check on her friend a few hours later.
Lorene told police that when she could not find her friend Linnell inside the house, she checked the garage, and what she finds is wall-to-wall blood and a body covered by a garbage bag.
Once you get to the laundry room, you see evidence that a crime had occurred because there were bloody towels and there was some blood smeared on the floor. Then when you entered in the garage, we found lots of evidence that a crime had occurred.
When Miss Austin lifts an edge of the garbage bag, she sees a foot, motionless. She recognizes the toenail polish as that of her friend, Linnell. Lorene then checks the ankle for a pulse and gets nothing. Lorene then opens the bag at the opposite end and makes a gruesome discovery.
Linnell Barsock had been shot in the head, stuffed in garbage bags, and left in the garage of her large Palmdale home.
The story Lorene Austin shares with sheriff's detectives sends them in pursuit of the wrong suspects and allows the real killer to go free for years before they are finally caught. In the summer of 2010, Linnell Barsock was achieving all of her goals.
Linnell had purchased a large 6-bedroom house in Palmdale the year before her murder. Now, it was appointed with expensive furniture and large TVs. Linnell drove a BMW. At 29 years old, she was doing very well for herself. Linnell could afford all of these nice things she desired by working hard and succeeding as a licensed vocational nurse, or LVN, at a nearby hospital.
When conducting background on the victim, Linnell Barsock, sheriff's detectives learned that she was well respected at her workplace and went above and beyond to show compassion and genuine concern for the patients in her care. Linnell was the third of 5 children, and by all accounts, she loved her family very much, visiting her parents and siblings often.
Linnell was adored by everyone and made friends easily. Growing up, she excelled at school and was always on the honor roll. It's little wonder she was doing so well in life as a young, success-driven woman.
At the time of her murder, Linnell was living with a boyfriend, a native of Haiti named Louis Bonner.
Louis and Linnell had a somewhat turbulent relationship. Louis was known to be jealous of Linnell.
He would go through her cell phone, and if he would go through her text messages. He would call back numbers that he didn't recognize. He would show up at her work to see if she even showed up to work, to see if she maybe had played hooky and was out being with somebody.
Lewis had a hot temper and even stopped Linnell one time, forcing her car off the road, causing her to crash. But perhaps Lewis had reason to be jealous.
There was another guy named Ike Amuna, who she'd been dating since March.
The boyfriend had given Linnell a second cell phone so they could communicate easily without Lewis finding out.
Linnell is keeping a deep secret from Lewis, but she does share this secret with one person.
According to statements made to sheriff's detectives by Lorene Austin, Linnell Barsock and her were lifelong friends who had known each other since elementary school.
Lorene said that her and Linnell had gone to lunch together on the afternoon of June 16, 2010. They then purchased some supplies from a local beauty shop so Lorene could weave extensions into Linnell's hair that afternoon. Lorene Austin reportedly witnessed Lewis's jealousy firsthand on the day of the murder.
Linnell and Lewis got into a heated argument about Linnell seeing other people.
Lorene said she left the house so the couple could work things out. Several hours later, she returned to a very quiet house.
Lorene's calls for her friend go unanswered. There is no sign of Linnell in the house, so Lorene decides to check the garage to see if her car is gone.
When Lorene entered the garage, she says she slipped and fell. It wasn't until she turned on the light that she realized what she had slipped in. Inside the garage were sheets of plastic on the floor that were covered in the victim's blood. Linnell Barsock's car, her BMW, was backed into the garage. The trunk was open. Next to the car, according to Lorene Austin, was a large black garbage bag. Lorene sees a pair of feet sticking out of the bag. The toenails are painted, and Lorene says she recognized them as belonging to her friend Linnell. Lorene claims she felt the ankle for a pulse and found none.
I imagine she's fearing the worst as Lorene slowly lifts the opposite end of a garbage bag and makes the horrific discovery. It is indeed Lorene's friend, Linnell Barsock, and she's been murdered. Back inside the house, Lorene hears a noise coming from upstairs.
Lorene told sheriff's deputies that when she peered upstairs, she saw a man holding a gun.
Lorene then flees the house, fearful the killer is there, knows she saw the body of Linnell in the garage, and is now going to come after her. Lorene speeds to the sheriff's station and rushes in. Now she looks terrified and terrifying as she is still covered in the victim's blood.
Lorene tells her tale to sheriff's deputies about the argument she saw, then finding the body and seeing the man on the stairs with a gun.
She tells us how when she comes back, she sees Lewis and he's actually in the house and he actually chases her after she finds her friend's body.
The man at the house, the man Lorene says chased her from Linnell's house where she'd been murdered, the man with the gun, was Louis Bonner.
On June 16, 2010, Lorene Austin discovers the body of her friend in the garage of her Palmdale home. She's been murdered and placed inside a garbage bag. Lorene also finds that the killer is still in the house.
She saw a man holding a gun.
Lorene then flees the house, fearful the killer is there, knows she saw the body of Linnell in the garage, and is now going to come after her. Lorene speeds to the sheriff's station and rushes in.
Lorene showed up covered in the victim's blood, stating that she had slipped in the garage while looking for Linnell after the fight with Lewis. She then goes on to tell sheriff's deputies about seeing the victim's boyfriend, Louis Bonner, at the scene of the crime holding a gun. She claims that he chased her from the scene and that she lost him on the way to the station.
Recounting that she witnessed Linnell and Louis arguing earlier that day, well, this immediately makes Louis the prime suspect.
At this time, the case is assigned to veteran sheriff's detectives Joe Espino and Bob Kenny. They're briefed on the known details and are dispatched to the victim's home.
Detectives found a lot of evidence to be present upon first investigating the scene.
There was a rolled-up area rug hanging out of the open car door. a pitcher with a bloody fingerprint, gloves covered in blood. At this time, detectives called the forensic team to process the scene. This endeavor would be led by the sheriff's senior criminalist, Mary Keynes.
What was not found at the house was any sign of Linnell's boyfriend, Louis Bonner.
All we knew at the time is his first name was Louis, and they drove a black Nissan pickup truck. So we ran the victim's name, Linnell Barsock, through DMV, Department of Motor Vehicle Records, and we were advised that she had 2 vehicles registered to her. One was a blue BMW, which we found in the garage. It had been backed into the garage where her body was. And the other vehicle registered to her was a black Nissan pickup truck, but it was co-registered to her and Louis Bonnier.
At this time, sheriff's detectives also have to perform the daunting task of informing the victim's family of the tragedy that has occurred.
This is never an easy process. You don't know how the family will respond. It could be shock, intense grief, or anger and rage.
Linnell was deeply loved by her family. This is the last thing they wanted or expected to hear.
Louis Bonner was tracked down and placed under arrest on suspicion of murder.
Once interrogated, Louis immediately denies having anything to do with the murder, and he insists that the detectives have the wrong guy.
Sheriff's detectives Espino and Kenny are seasoned cops who know how to read a suspect in custody, and they noticed a few suspicious things when first speaking with Louis.
There was a perfect storm that pointed towards Louis as our suspect that night. Lots of things surfaced that directly pointed at him, and the evidence was overwhelming that made him our suspect.
First is that he had a scratch on his neck.
I noticed that there was a scratch on the left side of his face, and I questioned him about it. He doesn't say it's because of the argument over Ike. He says that the reason he got scratched is because Linnell caught him on Facebook talking to some girl, and she got jealous, and so that's why she scratched him.
Second is that they noticed Louis was crying, but had no tears.
When we told him that Linnell had actually been murdered, which he just wasn't seriously hurt, she was actually murdered, he started crying, but as he was crying, and everyone expressed his grief differently, but I didn't see any tears, and I thought to myself, I don't know, he could be faking this.
He also tells detectives that his relationship with Linnell Barsock was just fine, which they know not to be the case based on information given by those that knew the couple.
There was a statement from the victim's brother that he had seen Louis using a computer to make online bank transactions and look up flights to Miami.
That was another red flag because Louis is from Haiti, and we thought, oh my God, he's looking up flights.
But that wasn't the most damning piece of evidence against Louis.
In the victim's home, Keynes finds a Dear John letter.
A Dear John letter refers to a note in which one person breaks off a relationship with another person. In other words, it's a letter no one wants. It's often a cold, immature, and disrespectful way to end any kind of intimate relationship, but it's also definitive and effective.
It appeared to be a letter from the victim, Linnell Barsock, and written to Louis, her boyfriend. It states that Linnell is leaving him for Ike and that he shouldn't bother looking for her.
When we found that letter and knowing how jealous he was, we thought that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what drove Louis over the edge to the point where he murdered his girlfriend out of jealousy because she was leaving him for the other guy that he had found out about.
Louis continues to deny any of this is possible. He insists to detectives that he was not even in Palmdale on the day in question and could not have committed the murder.
Louis's story is that he drove over 65 miles into south central Los Angeles to buy auto parts for his truck. Now he says there is no way he could have done what they're accusing him of. In his eyes, it just wasn't possible.
Hoping they would find evidence in the truck that would further point the finger at Louis, sheriff's detectives were shocked at what they did discover.
Inside the suspect's truck were several receipts from downtown LA auto retailers, and they were time-stamped around the time Linnell Barsock would have been shot.
We thought, great, if these are actually Louis's receipts, that should help exonerate him, but there's no guarantee those are his receipts.
When they checked the security footage from the store, sure enough, Bonner's on it.
at 2:50 in the afternoon, he walks into that store with Ciego Edmund, that's the mechanic, and they buy auto parts. And then again, he's at that same store at 5:36 in the afternoon by himself buying auto parts.
Analysis of the suspect's phone records also showed pinging of towers up and down the freeway from Palmdale to downtown LA at the exact time the murder occurred.
So the pinging of his phone records and the videos that we saw of him in those stores at the various times, and the statement from Bobby Barsock that he shows up at her house around 6 o'clock, we know that Lewis never made it back to Palmdale, so he could not have been our murderer.
At this time, detectives clear Linnell's other boyfriend, Ike Umana, the one who gave Linnell the second cell phone. With no discernible motive, no apparent suspects, Espino and Kenny are at a loss. Then, some interesting developments occur that help point detectives in a new direction.
In speaking with Linnell's family, mentioning the friend who discovered her body, Lorene Austin, gets no recognition at all. For someone who claims to be Linnell's lifelong friend, how is it that the family has never heard of her?
Furthermore, analysis of the victim's computer and cell phone records show only a month's worth of history between Linnell and Lorene.
In addition to having two boyfriends, Linnell was also interested in women. Her and Lorene did not meet years ago as children in elementary school, as Lorene claimed. They met only a month before Linnell's murder on the Women Seeking Women personal section of the website Craigslist.
She had it all, and Linnell winds up meeting Lorene. Lorene and Linnell develop a romantic relationship.
If Lorene Austin was lying about her relationship with Linnell Barsock, what more could she be lying about? The investigation into the murder of Linnell Barsock in her Palmdale home is moving quickly, for now. The claims from her friend, Lorene Austin, that she witnessed Linnell and her boyfriend Lewis arguing just hours before the murder do not add up, as Lewis is proven to be over 65 miles away at the time the crime takes place.
Lewis's story is that he drove over 65 miles into south central Los Angeles to buy auto parts for his truck.
With no discernible motive, no apparent suspects, Espino and Kenny are at a loss.
Sheriff's detectives are now wondering what other aspects of Lorene's story are not truthful.
Unlike Linnell Barsock, Lorene Austin did not own her own home. She didn't have a great job that offered her a luxury car and nice furnishings.
Lorene had a lot of built-up frustration, anger, jealousy, because she didn't have a full-time job. Her credit history was a mess. Every account she ever had, whether it was a credit card, student loans, utility bills, was either in collections, or it was delinquent, or had been written off by the company.
The investigators even learned that Lorene had been telling people she was a nurse, lived in a nice part of town, and drove a BMW.
These are not features of Lorene's life, but Linnell's. Lorene seems to be absorbing Linnell's identity for her own.
A closer look at Lorene shows she had met Linnell only about a month prior to the murder.
Linnell was not only cheating on her live-in boyfriend with a man named Ike, but she was having a sexual affair with Lorene. The two connected through the Women Seeking Women section of Craigslist. This added a whole new dimension to the investigation, and detectives dug deeper.
Lorene was quite active on the website. She was communicating with 3 other women through message boards, plus dating Linnell, and in sexual relationships with 2 other women at the time.
Analysis of Linnell's phone showed text messages between the victim and Lorene that dated back about a month.
The two were not lifelong friends who attended elementary school together, as Lorene told police. They had only just met and began the affair.
4 days prior to the murder, Linnell sent a text message to Lorene in which she ends their sexual encounters. Linnell explained she wanted to focus on her relationship with Lewis.
She gets a text message from Linnell saying, hey, let's just be friends. I want to stop the sexual activity. I'm going to make it work with my boyfriend.
Lorene seemed to be all right with this, but wanted to maintain their friendship together. Linnell agreed. Now, you'll recall, Lorene told police that she met with Linnell on June 16th. The two had lunch together and went shopping for hair supplies so Lorene could weave Linnell's hair.
Sheriff's detectives now knew that the story Lorene told them was a fabrication. Lewis was not at the house that day, there was no fight between him and Linnell, and Lorene did not leave them alone for a span of an hour while she went for a walk.
What did happen that afternoon at Linnell's house? Linnell is dead, so the only person they can get the truth from, the only person they know was there, was Lorene.
Lorraine Austin meets the 3 requirements for sheriff's detectives to take a much more serious look at her as a suspect. She has means, motive, and opportunity.
Detectives Espino and Kenny attempt to have Lorene come in and take a polygraph test.
Polygraph examinations, or lie detector tests, are not admissible in the court of law in the state of California. They are, however, a useful tool for investigators to employ and can give an idea if the suspects they have are viable leads to follow, or if they need to change tactics.
Lorene agrees to take the test, but avoids actually coming into the station to take it. After being dodged by Lorene, detectives discover that Lorene has been searching on the internet for ways to beat a polygraph test.
Lorene Austin was making herself appear more and more suspicious. It's difficult not to speculate. Did Lorene agree or offer to style Linnell's hair just so she could get close to her?
Mary Keynes, the senior criminalist in charge of forensics on the case, along with the LA County coroner, noted that Linnell's cause of death was a result of being shot in the back of the head. She also noted that the bullet entered Linnell's head at a downward angle.
This is often referred to as execution style, where the victim is kneeling or seated and the shooter stands behind them when the trigger is pulled.
Investigators still don't know for sure who killed Linnell Barsock. They only knew one thing for certain at this point. Based on the forensic evidence, Linnell never saw it coming.
29-year-old Linnell Barsock was shot once in the back of the head and her body left in the garage of her upscale Palmdale home.
Detectives found a lot of evidence to be present upon first investigating the scene.
Sheriff's detectives Joe Espino and Bob Kenny question her jealous and hot-tempered boyfriend Louis Bonner, but Louis has an airtight alibi.
Lewis's story is that he drove over 65 miles into south central Los Angeles to buy auto parts for his truck.
It's then that detectives learn of the sexual affair Linnell was having with friend Lorraine Austin. And they also learn that Lorraine was perhaps after more than intimate encounters with Linnell.
It was quite a messy and cluttered crime scene to process. There were sheets of plastic covering the floor that had been used to try and conceal the victim's body. The trunk of the vehicle that was parked in the garage, a BMW belonging to the victim, had discarded cleaning supplies thrown in the trunk. An area rug believed to have come from inside the home was rolled up and placed in the back seat of the car. Strewn about were also items used to attempt to clean the crime scene, a plastic pitcher and rubber gloves. One thing that was everywhere was blood. It was a monumental task for senior criminalist Mary Keynes to sort through and find which pieces of evidence were significant to the case and to proving who killed Linnell Barsock.
Sheriff's detectives Espino and Kenny had now turned their attention to Linnell's former lover, Lorene Austin.
Lorene had been caught in several lies. She and the victim were not lifelong friends, but had only just met. And Lorene could not have witnessed Linnell and her boyfriend fighting that day. Louis was 65 miles away in south central LA.
With Lorene now dodging their requests to come in and take a polygraph test to help corroborate her story, detectives have to turn to physical evidence retrieved from the scene.
Mary Keynes determined that the victim was not shot in the garage where the body was discovered. Instead, evidence shows that Linnell Barsock was shot in the living room of her home, and the body moved to the garage. The area of rug that was rolled up and found in the back seat of the vehicle in the garage was determined to have come from the living room. When tested with luminol, a substance that shows if blood is present on a surface, the rug lit up.
We found footprints, bloody footprints, 2 of them, that someone stepped on the area rug and squashed it to compress it in order to put it in the back seat of the car.
This also told sheriff's detectives that the body was dragged across the rug. The forensic team then checked the rest of the home and made a fascinating discovery. The victim's blood made a trail from the living room of the home where it was believed she was killed, past the kitchen, through the laundry room, and finally into the garage where the body was located. The body and the rug were removed, then the blood trail was cleaned in an attempt to hide the evidence.
Inside that rolled up rug, needles used to weave hair were found.
If Lorene never had a chance to weave Linnell's hair as she had claimed, why were the needles present in the bloody rug?
A gray plastic pitcher found in the garage had a bloody fingerprint on the outer surface.
Whoever placed that fingerprint on the container did it in a way that it appeared they didn't want to leave any fingerprints. Well, that bloody fingerprint turned out to belong to Lorraine Austin. The blood belonged to our victim and the fingerprint was hers.
Among the mess of cleaning supplies found were a pair of black rubber gloves. When the crime lab tested these, the blood matched the victim and DNA located on the inside of the gloves matched Lorraine Austin.
Then there is that Dear John letter, the one that was so damning against the jealous boyfriend at one time.
This letter, signed by Linnell, told Louis Bonner that she was leaving him for Ike. It said Louis can have the house and everything in it. She was leaving the state and that he should not come looking for her.
Linnell Barsock was a smart, well-educated woman. When you look at the language used in the letter, the lack of proper grammar, well, it just doesn't seem like a letter that would come from Linnell. Dear Louis, I'm leaving you for Ike. He makes more money, so you can do whatever you want to do with the house. I'm moving out of state with Ike, so that's why I gave you that phone. We're getting married, so just leave me alone. You can have everything in the house. I've been sleeping with him for 4 months now, and he's the only one that pay my car note, so good luck in life. P.S. I'm taking one of the TV. Goodbye, Linnell.
When the crime lab compared the letter to samples of Linnell Barsock's handwriting, it did not match. It was a match for the handwriting of Lorraine Austin.
It was Lorraine that forged it, so it was a forged Dear John letter that framed Louis. That's number one piece of evidence.
Also located at the scene was a pillow that had apparently been used as a makeshift silencer. It was placed against the victim's head at the moment she was shot to muffle the sound of the gun going off.
Keynes retrieved a bullet casing at the crime scene that was determined to have come from a 9mm gun. The weapon used in the murder of Linnell Barsock was never found, but detectives learned that Lorraine Austin did have a gun registered in her name, a 9mm handgun.
When Lorraine Austin ran into the sheriff's station on the night of the murder, we found in her purse, which was a large empty purse, we found nothing but a live bullet and her ID, and we found a second live bullet, and she had no explanations for these live bullets. Both of the live bullets that were found in her purse when she ran into that sheriff's station had the same extraction marks as the expended shell at the murder scene.
So you have Lorene lying to police about her relationship with Linnell. Now, they were short-term lovers, and Linnell had broken off the affair 4 days before her murder.
Forensics determined that Linnell was shot in her living room. The bullet entered the back of her head in a downward angle, so she was likely sitting at the time.
There is all this evidence pointing to Lorraine being present at the time of the murder. Her prints are found on materials used to clean the blood from the scene. Lorraine's DNA is found on a pair of gloves covered in the victim's blood. The letter to Lewis and signed by Linnell was proven to be written by Lorraine.
Thanks to the diligent police work of Sheriff's Detectives Espino and Kenny and the irrefutable evidence collected by senior criminalist Mary Keynes, there's finally enough evidence to charge Lorraine Austin with the murder of Linnell Barsock.
We had surveillance teams stake out her house where she lived, and they would follow whoever showed up at that house. They would see if she showed up with them, and she didn't.
But as sheriff's detectives move to execute the warrants, Lorraine Austin vanishes. Linnell Barsock was shot once in the back of the head, and her body left in the garage of her upscale Palmdale home.
Detectives found a lot of evidence to be present upon first investigating the scene. Lorraine's DNA is found on a pair of gloves covered in the victim's blood.
Then there is that Dear John letter, the one that was so damning against the jealous boyfriend at one time.
The letter to Lewis and signed by Linnell was proven to be written by Lorraine.
Once all the evidence is collected and processed, it all points to one suspect, Lorraine Austin. But as sheriff's detectives Joe Espino and Bob Kenny move to execute the warrant for her arrest, Lorraine disappears.
Detectives composed an interesting theory to go along with all the incriminating evidence against Lorraine. We know Lorraine was unemployed and had some substantial debt at the time she was dating Linnell. And people were saying that Lorraine was almost impersonating Linnell, saying she worked as a nurse and drove a nice car, neither of which were true.
The working theory was that Lorraine Austin saw Linnell Barsock as a meal ticket, so to speak. Lorraine's way out of poverty and into the lifestyle she wanted.
But when Linnell broke off the relationship, Lorraine's shot at her fantasy life vanished.
Despite the sexual affair coming to an end, Lorraine manages to persuade Linnell to remain friends.
Just 4 days after the text message breakup, Lorraine convinces Linnell to let her come over and style her hair.
Linnell's kindness, her positive outlook, and always seeing the best in people, well, she had no idea what was going to happen that day.
The promise to weave Linnell's hair was a ruse to get her alone and vulnerable.
I suppose it's fortunate for Linnell in one sense. She never saw it coming and likely didn't feel a thing.
If Linnell wasn't going to give Lorraine the lifestyle she wanted, moving in and having the successful woman provide for her, then Lorraine was not going to allow Linnell to give it to anyone else.
Killing Linnell was only the first step in Lorraine's plan.
The next step was to remove Linnell's body and clean up the scene.
Lorraine Austin simply didn't do a good enough job cleaning up the mess that she made. Whether she was rushed or didn't know exactly what she was doing, or a combination of both, the scene showed exactly where Linnell was shot and how her body was moved to the garage.
Once Lorraine had the body in the garage, sheriff's detectives surmised she wanted to load it into the trunk of Linnell's BMW.
In the trunk was already most of the cleaning supplies Lorraine had used to clean the scene.
The area rug from the living room where Linnell was shot and bleeding on was rolled up and placed in the back seat of the car. Palmdale sits very close to the California high desert. The desert has a long history of being a popular place for killers of all sorts to dispose of bodies.
Not only is the California desert region a large, relatively unpopulated, and not heavily trafficked area, but the hot, arid conditions help speed up decomposition and the degradation of any physical evidence on the remains.
Had Lorraine Austin succeeded in getting Linnell Barsock's body out to the desert, she may have gotten away with the murder. But two things prevented her from doing that: her own physical limitations and panic.
Just like Lorraine's plan A of murdering Linnell and dumping her body in the desert, her plan B was not any more well thought out.
Lorraine finishes cleaning the scene to the best of her limited ability. She hastily writes the Dear John letter telling Lewis she is leaving, never to return. Then she rushes to the sheriff's station and puts on her act of being chased in an attempt to frame the murder on Linnell's boyfriend, Louis Bonner.
It was all lies, of course. We know the physical evidence ends up pointing to Lorraine, and Louis had a solid, irrefutable alibi. He was cleared of suspicion, and all eyes are back on Lorraine.
We were a little gun-shy, to be honest, because we wanted to make sure we had all our ducks in a row before we actually effected an arrest on Lorraine Austin.
With a plausible theory and numerous items of evidence to back it up, all sheriff's detectives needed to do was get Lorraine Austin into custody. But that did not prove as simple as they had hoped.
Lorraine vanished, and it's been over a year without any progress in determining her location. Now, the cops had no idea where she went. As is often the case when this happens, police turn to the public to assist in the matter. Linnell Barsock's murder is featured on the popular television show America's Most Wanted in December of 2011. A year and a half after Linnell's murder, Lorraine Austin's face is broadcast all over the nation.
Tips started flowing in, and sheriff's detectives were busy sorting through all of them. The most promising lead placed Lorraine Austin in Punta Gorda. This is a small fishing town on the Caribbean coast in the Central American country of Belize.
Punta Gorda, Belize is a far cry from the upscale city of Palmdale.
A gentleman from New York called and he said, "Hey, I saw your program and I live in New York, but I was in Guatemala and I was visiting a cousin of mine in Guatemala. And while I was there, another cousin showed up with his girlfriend. And that girlfriend is the girl you guys are looking for in that murder episode I saw on America's Most Wanted. It's her."
The lead seems genuine, but finding a fugitive in this foreign land will be no simple task for sheriff's detectives.
Sheriff's detectives have all they need to charge Lorraine Austin with the murder of Linnell Barsock. The only piece missing is Lorraine herself.
Lorraine vanished, and it's been over a year without any progress in determining her location.
Espino and Kenny are at a loss.
Police turn to the public to assist in the matter.
After the story of Linnell's murder is featured on America's Most Wanted in December of 2011, a year and a half after the crime, tips come in that lead the investigative team to Punta Gorda, Belize.
A gentleman from New York called and he said, "Hey, I saw your program and I live in New York and I was visiting a cousin of mine in Guatemala. And while I was there, another cousin showed up with his girlfriend. And that girlfriend is the girl you guys are looking for in that murder episode I saw on America's Most Wanted. It's her."
Tracking a fugitive in another country takes a high degree of interagency coordination. Sheriff Detective Espino and Kenny had to first contact the fugitive task force of the FBI, who in turn have to meet with the local authorities in Belize. Once all the red tape is cleared, the search for a fugitive can begin.
Authorities knew that Lorraine was using a fake name in Belize, Crystal.
So on January the 25th, police authorities went out with the FBI, and police authorities arrested Lorraine Austin as an undesirable illegal immigrant in their country. And the following day, they deported her on the 26th of January of 2012. And when they deported her, they turned her over to the FBI, who flew her from Belize to Houston, Texas.
An updated episode of America's Most Wanted aired in February of 2012, and it detailed the success of the show leading to Lorraine's capture. While questioned by Espino and Kenny, Lorraine seemed more troubled by the public perception of her as a money-hungry mooch than she was about being arrested for murder.
Lorraine Austin pleaded not guilty in an Antelope Valley courtroom in September of 2012. She was held in custody on $2 million bail. After several lengthy delays, the murder trial began in the summer of 2015. During the 21-day trial, all the irrefutable and incriminating evidence against Lorraine Austin was presented by Deputy District Attorney Jason Quirino. The sheriff's detective's theory was presented alongside the evidentiary items retrieved from the crime scene. The DA went on to argue, if Lorraine was innocent of the crime, why did she go on the run for a year? Austin's defense attorney, David Kwok, tried as Lorraine did years earlier to shift the blame to Linnell's then-boyfriend, Louis Bonner. Kwok cited the many fights Linnell had with Louis, as well as the affair with Ike Umana and Lorraine herself, as motive for the jealous and hot-tempered Louis to be guilty of the murder. This argument held up in court about as well as it did years earlier for Lorraine. Louis's alibi of being in South Central LA was airtight.
After a short deliberation on August 13, 2015, the jury found Lorraine Austin guilty of first-degree murder for shooting Linnell Barsock.
August 26th, Lorraine Austin is sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. She is eligible for parole in 2042.
She was found guilty of murder of Linnell Barsock, sentenced to 25 years to life on the murder, and then another 25 years to life for the use of a firearm during the commission of that murder. You can't stereotype a killer, but if you were to do that, if you were to stereotype a killer and look it up in the dictionary under killer, you would not find Lorraine Austin's photograph. She doesn't look like a killer, but there, like I said, there's no such thing as a stereotype killer, but that's not what you envision as a killer when you think of that.
During the trial, one of the other women Lorraine was dating in 2010 at the same time as Linnell came forward to say that she felt lucky to be alive. It could have easily been her that Lorraine targeted.
Thankfully, we'll never know if Lorraine Austin would have killed again. Because after this horrific murder, she was finally caught.